Hi, my fellow. Welcome to your very first episode of the photography series in Castle Digit Researcher. Our first research question is: do you need an expensive UV filter for your camera lenses? And does lens filter affect your camera quality? Some professionals say no, lens filter won't affect your image quality. But wait, don't take their answer yet. Let's find it out ourselves. For today's experiment purpose, I brought in four 95mm flat UV filters in different price range to test them on this good reputation super telephoto zoom lens. Sigma 150 to 600, f5 to 6.3, contemporary BG on Canon EF Mark. First, here we have the Kodak UV filter for about $12, which claiming it could be able to observe atmospheric haze and improve image sharpness. Now, this is the $20 Polaroid optics UV filter, which also claims able to observe haze and improve image, but didn't say what aspect of image it could improve. Doubling the price is the $45 K&F Concept Nano X MC UV filter. And at last, this is the well-known branded B&W UV protection filters 010 MLC with 16 layers multi-resistant coating, which currently selling for around about $100. Depends on the site and the time you purchase these filters. Their price may fluctuate. All the items shown here today will be tested on Canon 5D Mark III and T6 in both full frame and APS-C sensors. Do you need an expensive UV filter for your camera lenses? And does lens filters affect your camera quality? This answer could be very different depending on your subject of photography and the purpose that you will use your camera for. In this video, we will see if sport, animals, wedding, portrait, fashion, daily family photography as well as video, and in what I do that require extreme details from image that I capture, need and worth to pay extra for their lens filters. In the next couple minutes, we will witness how filters in different price range perform in amount of light passing, image sharpness, lens glare, and also color accuracy. Unlike other type of photography, besides general image quality requirements, sport and animals photographer are always hungry for the speed of shutter speed to freeze up an action and speed to focus. To fulfill this requirement, photographers are willing to pay extra 100 and even 1,000 for a large aperture version of lenses to allow more light to go into their camera. But if a filter block too much light, it would against the meaning to having an expensive lens. Therefore, it is worth to pay extra bucks if a luxury filter that don't change the amount of light that pass through the lenses to the camera sensor. Let's take a quick look on the amount of light that each filter reduced. Can you tell the differences between each filter? If you couldn't, that's normal, because I couldn't tell either. But after compare the HSP brightness of the center of this sample, I noticed that the center of the filter B allow less light than the other three filters. And filter B even perform worse when I pick the sample from the corner. Filter C and D has only 0.7% of HSP brightness differences from without any filter on the lens, while filter A differences is almost close to zero. At this moment, could you guess which filter is which? Does the more expensive one allow the more light to pass through? No, it's not. At least not happening in this test. Speaking of low light resistant, Kodak, which has the cheapest price tag, obviously is the winner here, following by B&W and K&F. And Polaroid couldn't match with the other three. On the other hand, this time it seemed we could explain the color handling performance by the price tag of the filters. BMW, as I expected, has the least color shifting followed by KNF. And again, Polaroid has so disappointed me by letting Kodak, that costs half of its price, ran way ahead from itself. Polaroid trying to shift image to warm color in contrast, or BMW, KNF, and Kodak shift the color slightly, which is almost unnoticeable, to cool and majestic color. So would the differences influence photography, especially when it's so hard to tell which filter is which, when just by looking at the sample? When we convert the brightness value to exposure stop, there are only around 0.1 stop between Kodak and the one allowed the least light, Polaroid. I would say they would make no noticeable difference from the image that they produce, but 0.1 stop of light properly would slow down your speed of camera focusing, especially during low light situation. Your camera focus system won't become very slow after put on Polaroid, but for sport and wildlife photographer, focusing 1 in 100-second delay could really matter. It could cause them to miss some of one of the lifetime picture. And next, we brought the camera and filters to outdoor and test how do they handle the lens glare. Coming up is the footage shooting without any UV filter. And here are the sample of the 4 UV filters. For me, Polaroid is the one producing the most artistic lens flare, or in other words, it does not do a very good job on reducing the lens refraction. The other three has a very similar performance. The only thing that distinguishes Kodak with the other two higher priced filters is that Kodak glare is kind of greenish, while B&W and K&F glare are in purple. However, I would say the winners here is the footage without UV filter. Nowadays, the modern design lenses are mostly having coating that doing a pretty good job on minimizing lens reflection. Like shown in this testing, although all 4 of the filters tested today mention themselves have a multi-coating to against lens flare, having an additional glass in front of the Sigma lens will definitely ruins its advantage. The last question, but the one that we're most concerned for. If UV filter price and image sharpness are positively correlated, let's examine the question in both video and photography situations. First, here is showing sample footage of 720p with using the 4 filters. Please leave a comment below to let us know which filter you think that shows sharper image and preserve more detail. I hope I am able to control the lighting of the scene. There is shadow when shooting with Polaroid and Kodak, and the change in image brightness here has nothing to do with the filter's quality. And here are the nighttime footage recorded in 1080p. Do you think those 4 samples looks identical? Maybe record in higher resolution could help distinguish the image quality produced between each filter. Let's see what you think on this 3.5K raw footage. A quick side story. I'm still shooting with 5D Mark III in 2020 because it is the most advanced Canon camera that Magic Lantern is compatible with. Here the same footage but zooming for 2.5 times. Again, the sun come out when I'm shooting with K&F and B&W. It was nothing to do with the filters. Would you suggest me to get a 4-way tripod mount to have 4 different camera record simultaneously? Now, what do you think? Honestly, I couldn't tell their differences from any of the video resolution. But I assume photo shoot with 22 megapixel would have enough detail to compare their filters quality. But without zooming further on the 4K resolution, I still couldn't tell the difference. Before moving to examine the image detail and sharpness, let's see how they deal with the UV and the color contrast shooting under sunlight. K&F have a very similar outcome with B&W, they both improve image contrast. Some reflective material showing wash out in the picture depth without any filter on, but the K&F and B&W samples seem having a richer color on those objects. Kodak and Polaroid did their job too. Their improvement just not as apparent as the other 2 competitors. What about the image sharpness and the lens resolution that the filters preserve? Let's begin with the image center. I know the YouTube video compressed the image and reduced the image detail. Therefore, here I'm modifying them to 250% and isolate the object. That would be more easier for us to do the comparison. First, this is the image produced with B&W and compare with the KNF. B&W image has slightly less contrast, but KNF image has some majestic color around the side edges, while the B&W are free of chromatic aberration. It is pretty clear that the Polaroid softened the edges of the sign and also the words here, and the letter mouse under the exit 166 olive way is even meshed together. The Kodak is way better than Polaroid in terms of the image sharpness. Surprisingly, although KNF provide a better color contrast, its image is not as sharp as Kodak. But B&W, KNF, and Kodak differences is nearly unnoticeable, even zooming in to 300%. They are all the winners here in this session. Moving to the edge of the pictures, this time we are only focused on the sharpness of four objects. The large JTM logo attached on the crane, another JTM logo, and the word CCO printed on the comment located at the bottom section of the image, and another CCO banner located on the lower right of the picture. B&W performed extraordinarily in the test. It creates a sharper image and increased the color contrast compared to the original image. Next, although Kodak didn't increase the contrast as B&W, Kodak preserved the original color and is another filter that actually increased the sharpness in the edge area of the photos. Unfortunately, KNF didn't maintain its superior in this test on photo edge. It does block UV to the lenses and creates rich color photos. However, some details was lost and the image became a bit blurry. The performance of the Polaroid UV filter is significantly weaker than the other three. Same as the image center sample, Polaroid again is performing the worst. Looking at the CCO prints on the lower right of the small JTM become unreadable. Also, the shadow seems has been washed out. Not sure if it's related with the filter's UV blocking feature. When I studied the filter sample, I found out something which is pretty interesting. Could you spot the yellow sign written exceed 35 miles per hour? The B&W filter, which is one of the best filter performed in the last two tests, seems alter the writing of the number 3. It looked like a J5 than a 35, while other filters do not share the same problem. Moving to the APS-C sensor, the ranking of the image sharpness produced by each filter is the same as in the full frame, but the differences between each filters are much closer. Polaroid produced the most unsharp image no matter in which testing situation. Without zooming much further, it is already obvious Polaroid has removed a lot of image detail. Other than Polaroid, the others ranking in terms of image sharpness is No Filter, Kodak, B&W, and followed by KNF. Sometimes the angle of sunlight and exposure level could influence the image sharpness. Therefore, I decided to bring it to an environment that has controllable lighting. They all look the same in 250% zoom, while zooming into 600% we start seeing the differences. Like in some of the real-world testing that we just saw, B&W and Kodak has a crispier image than not having a filter. KNF is very close to bare lens, and no surprise, Polaroid make image fuzzy again. Over the corner, viewing in 245%, B&W remain the crown of sharpest. KNF and Kodak perform so close which I have to give them a tie. At last, Polaroid deficiency become much more evident when comparing the corner section of the sample image. Before I go to the conclusion, I would like to share you some of the limitations in this video. First, because today we are just having 4 UV filters in each price range, we do not have the population of the UV filters in the market. Also, not all the $100 range filters share the same quality as the B&W. As well, some $10 filters may have much poorer quality than Kodak or even the Polaroid, so we cannot determine if price and filter quality are positively correlated. However, we can answer the question of whether filter quality affects image quality. Next, I wish I have a way higher resolution camera like the 5DS or the newer R5 to examine whether if the quality and detail affected by lens filter will be more noticeable when in a higher resolution condition. And last, one of the primary purpose for having a UV filter is for protection. Some high-end options like today's B&W and K&F do able to resist oil, and the chrome they are able to resist scratch as well. Unfortunately, I don't have that much resource yet to perform this type of testing and can't afford to damage one of those. But I guarantee if I could afford to do durability tests in the future, I definitely will. To answer the research question of do you need an expensive filter for your lens? The simple answer is no. As to the testing result, price and performance is not always positively correlated. The only time that you need an expensive filter is that you need to have an expensive filter, or you have some special feature required from it. The other question, do UV filter affect image quality? Yes, definitely. And a bonus question for me to answer. Which one of the filter tested today will I suggest you to buy? It is a very difficult question because their performance is really close. And the filter like Kodak has a very good value. But I would tell you which I would not suggest you to get. Definitely this guy. To wrap it up, here we consolidate today's observation. Speaking of transmissions, the Polaroid UV filter allows the least amount of light to pass through. Kodak, B&W and K&F do not have much difference from the lens original transmittance. The Polaroid and Kodak here the set on 15 stop of exposure disparity. It may or it may not show influence on your shot. Sure, you won't see any differences on everyday straight photography, but it is possible to slower your camera focusing system. In number, B&W is our champion in terms of color accuracy. But I really couldn't tell there's a color difference between Kodak, K&F and B&W with the sample without the filter on. Even I check it with putting my face touching to the monitor. On the other side, Polaroid shift hue and added warm color tint to the image. The Sigma Super Telephoto Zoom lens that we used today for the test did a wonderful job on reducing lens refraction. Putting any of today's filter on it would just make the lens flare more strong. Lens flare is not a bad thing. Lens flare caused by strong rays of light could be an advantage when being creative in your production. In this case, Polaroid could be your best filter option. Under the sunlight, all four of the filters thus increase the image color contrast. Yet, the improvement from K&F and B&W are popping out even more. Here's the good news for vlogger and video maker. You can save your money from going to get an expensive UV filter for your lens, because in terms of image sharpness, they all look the same when shooting in or under 3.5K resolution. In both settings, Polaroid did not hold the detail from original photos. But don't get me wrong, Polaroid does have its own value even it always generates hazy, fuzzy image. Maybe you can save some of your time if you have to smoothing out your object anyway later in your post-processing. Not. Moving to the APS-C sensor, the ranking is similar to the full frame test, but unlike the previous test, when we focus on the center section of the sample image, there's no huge gap between Polaroid and others' performance. Anyway, when focusing on sample image corner, maybe because of APS-C sensor squeezing in all the pixels together, it seemed landing a harsher challenge to the filters. None of the filters here create a sharper image than just by the lens itself. Unexpectedly, even when only viewing the sample in 25%. It is already easy to notice the detail missing from the sample shooting with the Polaroid filter. Alright, that's it for today's topic. I really hope you like this video and appreciate for any input. If you have any suggestion on this test or request on future video, please leave a comment below. Again, thank you so much for watching and see you soon.